Let's put a grade on the quarterbacks, Prescott and Rush, for the season.
I will go C-. I will go C-. I think your overall numbers at the end of it, you look at it and you go, oh, okay. But you watch the way that the season went and you say, nope, there was a lot of things wrong. But for somebody who is supposed to be able to kind of fix some things that are wrong, I wish Dak would have been able to do more. And he was not. So Dak gets, or the quarterbacks.
That's Prescott and Rush, yeah.
Get a C- from me.
Gavin?
Well, yeah, what do they end up having? Like 4,700 yards and almost 40 touchdowns and probably 11 interceptions combined. Shoot, I think Jeff's on it, though. It's crazy to have such good statistical production. I didn't want to believe it as the season was going, but a lot of people were texting in or tweeting and saying they're just piling it up in against bad teams in blowouts, and it doesn't really count. And I guess I buy into that right now. I do think Dak was compromised by the injury, but yeah, I'm going to agree with Jeff and just go C-. I can't come up with anything better than that.
Yeah, I went.
Professors over here, we know how to grade.
I actually went with a C on that group there. I know Cooper.
You're a positive guy.
Cooper got a win for you, Minnesota. I think that helps. That kind of got me from a C- to a C. Is what happened. You know, Cooper actually went out there and got a win. But yeah, I think with Dak Prescott, I really believed with all my heart that he was the better quarterback the other day. He didn't play like it. You know, they needed him to play well, and for whatever reason, you know, whether it's the offensive coordinator, the offensive line, the receivers, the running game, or whatever. But the responsibility is of the quarterback. I mean, you've got to go out there and make plays. They needed you to make throws, to finish drives. You couldn't have empty drives. We understand about pressure and things like that, but there were some throws that just weren't made in that football game. And overall, I think the last 8 weeks, you kind of saw that. So I'm going to say the quarterbacks were a C on that. You two said C-. Next group is the wide receivers. Yeah, that would be Cooper, Lamb, Gallup, and Wilson is what I've included as the wide receiver group there.
You know, it wasn't a great year because you had injuries, and there were some drops and some route issues from CeeDee Lamb. But I feel like these guys were targeted by the defenses. Hey, this group is not going to beat us. And oftentimes they still found a way to have an impact on the game. That being said, I'm going to go ahead with a B+.
Jeffrey?
I'm going to give them a C. And I like what Gavin is saying, actually, because I believe when we get to a certain part of the grading and you hear my grade, I wonder what everyone else's grade would have been if it weren't for the offensive line. If you were able to block, could you have been like, oh, my quarterback was a B and my receivers were an A, and boy, we really tore it up because we protected and we were able to. But that's not the point right now. The point right now is the wide receivers. And I think Cedric Wilson in his opportunities has done well. I think CeeDee and Cooper played almost up to what I would want them to when they had opportunities. I'm going to give the wide receivers a C.
I went C+ on these guys myself is what I did. And the reason I did it was I had a lot of very high expectations for this group. I know in June we were talking about, hey, over and unders and things like that. And, you know, oh, could this be the trio that has over 1,000 yards and all that? Maybe it's because the quarterback was a C- that these wide receivers didn't. But to me, I felt like, I think the thing that was the most exciting to me was the fact that you saw Wilson step up. The most disappointing thing to me is you saw Gallup get hurt, you know, and really not be a factor in what they needed to be. I was disappointed with Cooper, the whole thing with the COVID, you know, with the injuries and stuff like that. They could have been a lot better there, but I went with the C+ on that group. So just to recap, Gavin with the B+.
That's right.
Jeff with the C, me with the C+.
They can't help it their quarterback doesn't throw it to him that much.
No,
I think they all caught a high percentage of their targets.
I'm okay with what you're saying.
Right on, really right on.
Tight ends, and I went with Schultz, and I threw Jarwin in there, even though he wasn't. But I'm not going to put those other guys. So you're really grading just Dalton Schultz here is what you're doing.
B+. I think he surpassed expectations, and I think like everybody else in here, I wonder what his grade is if you're able to do other things. But I think because of the way people were playing you, your opportunities were going to be to your tight end and to whoever lined up in the slot. And so we got to see a lot of Dalton Schultz and Cedric Wilson catching footballs, and Schultz did a great job. Not a good blocker, but for what he was asked to do, I think he did a really, really good job. B+.
Yeah, I've been the Dalton Schultz doubter. I think he had a really good run from about week 5 to week 13 or something where his butterfinger issues just completely evaporated. He was there for Dak. I think I am more down on his blocking, and I am more down on his lack of run after catch and ability to make plays than Jeff, so I'm going to go with a B-.
Okay. I agree with you. I'm going to give him, I'm going to give him a B. And I graded him that because I like what you guys were saying about the catching ability. There was way, way too many times where I was watching a negative play and number 86 was standing there next to the defenders. He's laying on top of your back. You know, there were times they put him in, positions of point of attack blocking. He couldn't handle that. If he was a better blocker, this would have been an A for me, just because of what he was able to do and catch. And, the run after catch, you're right about that, General. But I think that, he just was a solid B. The blocking is something I'll be really interesting to see what Gang of Seven say about him going forward. Do you just grade him as a pass catcher down the field? And do you just look away the other way from the blocking, and do you pay him because he's just catching the ball and not doing the other stuff? So we'll see. But I give him a B. Just to recap, Jeff, B+, Gavin, B-, myself, a B. Running backs, that would be Elliott and Pollard would be the running backs.
I'll go with C- for Zeke. I think it could have been a really good bounce back year and a B+ or something like that. I kind of look at him and say, man, you said that you did the right thing playing through injury and all your teammates would have done the same thing. I would give him a higher grade if he would have been like, man, I knew at midseason I was hurt and I did not have the Jets, so I took myself out to let Tony Pollard carry it, and I put myself in a limited role. That would get an A for me from Zeke. For Tony Pollard, I'm going to give him an A-. I think he was really good, and kind of like the wide receivers, he could only do what he was given an opportunity to.
What's the aggregate grade there?
I think it's a B.
Brian's been asking.
Let's go B.
That's right. That's a B. Yeah, that's a B. I kind of put it together that way. Yeah.
I put B-. I think that Tony Pollard was incredible. I think to be able to keep your average, like early in the year, I know it was like in the 7s or maybe even 8, but to be able to end the year and still have been at 5.5 yards per carry, which if it didn't lead the league, it was off by 0.1 with what you were given to work with. And to get almost 9 yards per catch and all 9 of them be yards after the catch on all of them, I think Tony Pollard, catching 85% of your targets, I think Tony Pollard was incredible. And Zeke was below average. So B-.
Yeah, I went C+ with this group is what I did. I kind of felt like, though, and again, if you're injured and you're trying to go out there and play, I admire you for doing that. But if it's affecting the way that the group as a whole is working, I think that Tony Pollard, if Zeke should have sat some games. He should have and let Tony, and maybe overall it would have been a better result running the football. But as a group, I have to give them a C-, a C+ on that. Okay, the final group here for the offensive side of the ball is the offensive line. That would be Smith, Williams, Biotish, Martin, Collins, Steele, and McGovern.
F-. I blame the results of the team. To me, there's 2 ways you could do this. You could give them an F-, or you could give them a different grade and say that the offensive coordinator just never figured out how to make it work or adjust to something. But I just keep going back to offense is really, really hard if 7 guys are covering 3 and you're getting pressured by 4 people.
Yeah.
That is a hard life to live offensively. I think the offensive line outside of the first 6 weeks of the year was atrocious. F-.
Yeah, especially with how they talked about continuity and then went away from it so hard and made things worse. They had 1 + 1, equal somehow 1.5 when it came to their talent and how it was coordinated together. So I really like what Jeff said. You could give them a different grade and point more towards it. I'll just focus on the offensive line itself. And they were part of success. They did run the ball well. So I'll bump it up to a D-, to sort of give them credit for when it did go well during the season.
Yeah, I gave them a D. I did, because I kind of split it on the grade of it maybe being an A and then the F, and then I kind of just in between said, you know what, this is what it is. I think at the end they were the factor that probably cost you the opportunity to have success in the playoffs.
The worst, yeah.
They talked about continuity and all that. They never had it. You've got guys that are potential Hall of Fame players, Pro Bowl type players on this offensive line. I felt like at the end they were poorly coached. They were poorly schemed. They did a poor job. They did not do anything to kind of keep things going for this offense. So I gave them a D. And real quick as I finish up, can you put a grade on the offensive coordinator, please?
F.
Yeah, F. I think the talent carried them to those stats in spite of the guy doing his best Scott Linehan impression in a lot of games.
If he's not an F, then Joe Philbin's an F, or somebody is an F.
Yeah,
because you couldn't figure out anything.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that. I absolutely do. I think that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest indictment of what happened with this offense this year. That your coordinator for the first half of it had a really nice plan. Something halfway through this switched where he couldn't dial up anything, couldn't scheme anybody open, couldn't get the running game going, couldn't help the quarterback. So yeah, that's a failure on his part. For all the pieces they have on offense, they should have been. Now the numbers say they're this, and this, but at the end of it, they just weren't good enough. They needed to beat Arizona. They needed to beat the 49ers. They couldn't do anything offensively to get that done. So to me, that's an F as well.
I'd relegate him to college ball where he could run some tricky Cliff Kingsbury offense or something like that with a quarterback who's
Cliff's
cerebral.
Getting graded right
arm.
now too.
Yeah.
He's probably getting an F as well.
There you have it.
The numbers on Cliff after a first 7 weeks of a season, college and NFL.
Yeah.
Whew.
Gets
Not good.
adjusted to pretty good.
Nosedive.